So there are different definitions of a rights-based approach to children's rights. Obviously, we want to look at the Convention on the Rights of the Child, but the one that I use is an adaptation of what's called the UN Statement of Common Understanding of a human rights-based approach. And it says three things. It says that the goal of a rights-based approach is the realisation of children's human rights. So we want to use the standards in the Convention and other human rights treaties. The second element is that the processes of whatever you're doing in your programming or policy should be children's rights based. And that means that it must comply with the Convention. So for example, obviously children should be protected from harm, decisions should be taken in a child's best interests. And then from my perspective, of course, that children must be involved in those processes. You cannot have a children's rights-based approach without involving children. And then finally is the outcome. The outcome of a child rights-based approach should be that duty bearers, so government, policymakers and others, should be in a better position to realise children's human rights, and children themselves should be in a better position to claim their rights. So those are the three elements, the way that I prefer to think about a children's rights-based approach. Well, I suppose there are many obstacles for meaningful participation. I think really the two biggest ones are making sure that we include all children. There are still some children who rarely get heard, seldom heard children. So that's one of it. How do we get out to most children? And the second biggest one from my perspective then is just making sure that when children do express themselves, that they're taken seriously. But on top of that, then we have the attitudinal problem, I think, which is really convincing people that it is worth doing. It's not enough sometimes just to say it's a human right and you should get on with it. We have to show people that it actually really does make a big difference to children's lives and to children themselves. And how do we change attitudes? I suppose we need training, we need resources, we need the evidence that shows adult decision makers, not just how to do it, but also what the effect of that is. And I think those really are the biggest obstacles. So there are a lot of myths about child participation, and I suppose most of them I would portray as misrepresentations, and they're often used, I think, as a way of really finding excuses not to do it. So some of the common myths would be things like, as I said, that children are too young, or that an issue is too sensitive, or that the children are too vulnerable. And again, these are all excuses to exclude children in some ways. Now, there's truth in all myths. Myths are myths for a reason. There's an element of truth and it can be challenging, but the Convention gives all children the right to be heard. So we can't really say they're too young. We have incredibly good examples of very young children being involved in decision making. It's even more important, I would argue, when children are in vulnerable situations, that they're heard and there's no issue too sensitive. So that's one set of myths. Then there are another set of myths that in some ways are overstating the right, and I think they also are a bit problematic. So things like saying children are the future, no, they're actually the present, or that children are the experts in their own lives. That's one of my favorites. Children have expertise in their own lives, but so do adults. They're not the only experts. They are maybe the experts in their own feelings, but sometimes we can overstate it, and that is also a myth and misrepresentation. And there are lots of advantages to investing in meaningful participation policies and involving children in policy. But I want to start by saying it shouldn't actually matter whether there are advantages or not, because it's a human right. And then we start to ask, well, why is it a human right? It's a human right because it affords children dignity, equality, and respect for their human worth, which we show through our agency, our ability to make the decisions in our own lives. And so children don't always have that. They need adults to make decisions for them. But because they still have a right to equality, dignity, and respect, we should involve them. But having said that, it is a human right and we should just do it. We have increasing evidence of all of the really positive benefits that come when we involve children. There are benefits for children themselves about their self-confidence, their self-esteem, just all sorts. For example, in schools, we have evidence of better attainment, we have evidence of better attendance, more engagement with school. And then, of course, for the policies themselves, it's just a simple principle that it's going to be more relevant to children, hopefully cost effective because we find out what things are working for children and what are not working for children, and just more effective generally. That's the reasons why we really want to involve children in decision making.